going on, guys? It's Steve. So LeBron James came out and said that Greg Popovich is the greatest coach in NBA history. Now, is he correct? And the simple answer is yes. He is correct that Greg Popovich is the best coach in NBA history. Now, if you think about it, a lot of people, say, oh, this coach is so good when they're winning, right? For example, Phil Jackson with Kobe. He had Kobe and Powell. And then let's go even further back. He had Shaq and Kobe. And let's go even further back. He had Michael Jordan. So 11 championships there, right? So if you go to the Eric Spoelstra era with the Miami Heat, who I think was a really good coach. I still think he's a solid coach. If you look at the Eric Spoelstra era with Miami, everyone was praising him, coach of the year. Oh, you're going to be coaching the All-Star game. But that's only when he's winning. Notice no one talks about him anymore now that his team is garbage. And the reason why the Miami Heat still have him as a coach is because he's a pretty damn good coach. Anyway, so, all of these things come into play when I decide who's the best coach. But you have to understand this, that there's one coach that no matter the situation, no matter the era, for some damn reason has been a title contender for over a decade and a half. Oh, actually 2 decades now. It's 2017. It's 2 decades now since Tim Duncan got drafted. 20 years he's been title contenders. The crazy thing about it is, everyone's been doubting, oh, they're too old, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't compete with this, they can't compete with that. Tim Duncan is the second player in NBA history to win a championship in 3 different decades. 3 different decades. That's ridiculous. Absolutely astonishing. Greg Popovich is an amazing head coach. Like LeBron said, what he did with Mike D'Antoni's offense was crazy. Now, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Mike D'Antoni introduced this run-and-gun offense with Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, Leandro Barbosa, etc., Jared Dudley, back in the Phoenix Suns prime days with Steve Nash and Amari and the MVP days, and from like 04, 07, 08, like that era, right? And Greg Popovich he was old school at that time. He didn't like shooting threes. He didn't like, the outside game. He liked penetrating and passing and things like that, post. But he utilized and he understood what Mike D'Antoni was doing. And every coach tried to change. But the only coach that did it better than Mike D'Antoni was Greg Popovich. And that's crazy because he went from having his own style to taking someone else's, but not only taking someone else's, being better than that other person at their own game. That's crazy. And if you look at some of the teams that the San Antonio Spurs have beat, well, first let's use the Miami Heat for example. Now I know Dwyane Wade was unhealthy, and I know Chris Bosh was unhealthy as well, and they played awful. I understand that, but in 2014 when they defeated the Miami Heat, that's nothing to just skim over. I mean, we're talking about 3 of the top 50 players of all time on that roster. And they beat them. Even out of Tim Duncan's prime, they beat them. And we're talking about a team that competed with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh in 2013. Almost beat them. They were like 20 seconds away from winning a championship. That's nothing to skip over. To just skim over and say, oh, whatever. It happens. Like what? 3 different decades winning a championship, being title contenders for 2 decades, 20 years. That's nothing to just gloss over. And if you look, people say, oh, he had Tim Duncan. Okay, he had Tim Duncan, but now that Tim Duncan's retired for some damn reason, the San Antonio Spurs are still in contention to make it to the NBA Finals. Maybe not as much as they were before, but it's not like they went from one of the best teams in the league to just completely irrelevant after Tim Duncan. And that's not to say Tim Duncan's not that great of a player, because that dude is best power forward ever, and easily top 10 player of all time, But the fact is that Greg Popovich knows how to coach his team. If you look at it, Greg Popovich, he doesn't like interviews. He doesn't like any of that other thing, all that other nonsense. What he likes? He simply likes to get on there and coach the game of basketball. You know, I love that he's never afraid to yell at his star players. I remember once against the Houston Rockets when Tracy McGrady had that epic comeback, the best comeback in NBA history. And T-Mac, you're so humble because he said on the jump, he said one of the best ever. No, T-Mac, that is the best ever. I know Reggie was amazing, but 13 points in 30 seconds with the game winner, that's crazy. You know, I mean, and at 3-point and 1 play. I mean, come on. A 4-point play? Come on, dude. Anyway, during that game, Manu Ginobili did not run the play, or he threw a dangerous pass, actually, across the court. It didn't get stolen, but it was a dangerous pass. Greg Popovich called it. No, he didn't call a timeout. Yeah, I think he did, actually. He called a timeout, and he took Manu out, and he was yelling and cursing at Manu. He's not afraid to yell at his star players. I've seen him yell at Tim Duncan. I've seen him yell at Tony Parker. You know, he's not afraid to get at his star players. I've seen him yell at Kawhi. And the thing that I love the most about Greg Popovich is when you do good, he doesn't just, oh, good job, man. You know, he doesn't say anything right away, but he'll give you like subtle messages that he acknowledges that you're playing well. Like, for example, in the 2014 NBA Finals, I think Kawhi had a great defensive play on LeBron, and then they came on the other side and they scored. Miami called a timeout. Greg Popovich came and he like punched Kawhi in like the chest, but not like a hard punch, like a damn dog, like wow, you're amazing, like that kind of punch, you know. And it's just like those are the type of things that make Greg Popovich so special. And if you look, he's never had a team. I think Max Kellerman said this. I don't know if this is true or not, but he's never had a team he's never coached a team that has been below 500 on the road. On the road, that's crazy, man. You know, so when you, I mean, there is a debate because Phil Jackson. You can go back to Red Auerbach. You can go back to, what's his name? Oh man, the Miami Heat executive, man. Not Eric Spoelstra, the other dude. I'm sorry, it just slipped out of my mind. You know who I'm talking about. You know, there's a lot of great coaches. Jerry Sloan. There's a lot of great coaches, right? However, I think Greg Popovich is the one that had the longevity. He has the championships to back it up. You know, and people just throw out, oh, well, Phil has 11. 11 is greater than 5. Okay. When did Greg Popovich have Michael Jordan? When did Greg Popovich have, you know, Kobe or Pau Gasol or Shaq? You know, when did he have these players, you know? When did he have Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, you know? I mean, he had Tim Duncan, Tony, and Manu for his entire career. I'm not saying they're bad players. Obviously, Tim Duncan, again, top 10 ever. Tony Parker, possibly a top 10 point guard ever. Manu Ginobili, one of the best foreign players of all time. You know? So there's no denying the fact that he didn't have as much greatness as Phil Jackson did or the other dude. I still can't remember his name. I'm trying to remember while I'm talking. But, you know, there's no denying that fact. And the fact is that it comes from LeBron. And LeBron went up against Greg Popovich 3 times in the NBA Finals. 3 times in the NBA Finals. 2007, 2013, and 2014. He's 2-1 against the San Antonio. Actually, he's 1-2 against the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals. So there's, if anyone has the right to say, you know, he's the best coach ever, or he's this, he's that, he deserves this, it's LeBron, because he went up against him so many times in the finals, and you hear coaches praise him all the time. You know, I mean, come on, man. Greg Popovich, he's an amazing head coach, and if the Spurs start to decline, or let's say they somehow lose Kawhi, I bet you they'll still be in playoff contention. They obviously won't be in championship contention. That's the only thing that it's hard to judge coaches, because when you're talking about a coach, it's just like, okay, we have a lot of great coaches out there. Like, for example, Mike Woodson is a really good coach. You know, he's a really good coach. Who else? What's that dude's name? Tom Thibodeau is a really good coach defensively. Offensively, not so much, but defensively. I mean, there's some really good coaches out there. Brad Stevens with the Boston Celtics. There's some really good coaches out there. You know, but they just don't get the recognition because they don't have the star players that other coaches had. I mean, come on, man. Anyone would win a champion. I'm not taking anything away from Phil Jackson or anything like that, but anyone would win a championship with that Chicago Bulls team. Well, I can't say anyone because the New York Knicks head coach is absolute. Jeff Hornacek is a joke. This dude would probably do what he's doing to Melo to Jordan. Oh, Jordan, you're not going to come in until the 5-minute mark in the fourth quarter. You're going to get benched for half the fourth quarter. I don't know what logic that is, but, I don't want to talk about that. Anyway, guys, it's been Steve. I'm out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.